Hey guys, Mark with Think Insurance. Today we're going to make a very quick video to explain the difference between an insurance quote and a policy. There's also an application, but that's kind of in between. An insurance quote, when you get a quote from somebody, somewhere, anything, it's just a generalized idea of what the coverage cost could be. What it doesn't take into consideration is a few factors. We're going to talk about those, but also talk about the factors that it is calculating. At the end of the video, I'm going to show you guys the best way to do an insurance quote, as well as also show you some options as far as coverage packages that you should be looking at. There's a lot of different packages, and each company sometimes does a good, better, best if you're doing the quote online. So generally, a quote is the basic coverages. If you chose the basic, the good, or the better, it just depends on what you have. The parts that it doesn't necessarily ask is some of those in-depth questions. So the quote is fairly accurate based on what your knowledge of your driving history, your insurance score, and your overall policy should look like. They want to know what liability you want to carry. But more importantly, they're going to ask you what your prior insurance is. It's not a secret. They don't even care what company you're with. You could put other. It doesn't matter. There's not a specific discount based on a company. They like to compare so they know they're competitive against Allstate or State Farm or Progressive, whoever they are fighting against, so they can do some research. So it helps them analytically, but it doesn't matter price-wise to you. The thing that does matter is your length that you've been with them. A lot of companies offer a claims-free renewal as well as a length of prior insurance. So if you've been with one company for a year, 2 years, 3, 4, 5, and up, it's going to give you different discounts because they're looking for somebody that has been with the company for 5 years or more, because they know you're likely going to stay with them for an additional 5 years, and if they can take care of you, maybe 10 or forever. So part of that quote is built around those pieces, the coverage that you want and the deductibles and all of that. The parts that make it a quote is that it's not bindable. It's not actually a policy, because the policy is the purchased endpoint. So you're just getting an idea of a 5,000 foot view. I would normally say a 10,000 foot view, but you're getting pretty specific. The other part is if you've had any tickets, accidents, or claims. They also count if you've been towed, if you've had to have service for locking your keys in the car or the dead battery, anything that's in insurance. Not all companies rate that stuff. So if you've had towing, if you've had a glass claim or anything like that, some companies, and you'll learn them on this channel, don't rate for those. So there's no additional cost. Other companies do. Now, it's not just the claim, it's the date of the claim. If you had a ticket 3 years ago versus 5 years ago, that is a risk. They're trying to determine how risky that quote is going to be, and based on that risk level, that piece, the level of risk of your car. What's the claims on those cars? What's the theft on those cars? What's the injury reports? If there's a specific car out there that every time they get in an accident, the door pops off and somebody flies out on average, that's going to be a higher risk vehicle. In those scenarios, they take that risk, calculate the price, and that's what they give you. That's basically what you have. With some companies, you can purchase it right then and there, but you may notice that the price changes right before you go to buy it. So what they're doing in the background is they've taken that quote, you've activated it, so to speak. In a lot of cases, they have you talk to an agent because in most cases, you've picked a set general coverages, and they might want someone to review it with you to make sure, oh, are you missing something? Do you have claims for you? Do you have this discount? Do you have this coverage? Is that important to you? That way you're getting the best policy that you should get, and you're not upset with them down the road. Customer satisfaction is almost as important to an insurance company because it's their reputation. They sell more policies by having more customers that give them good reviews. So we've processed, we want to continue, contact me, call me, buy it, whatever the case is, we've selected to move forward. They need to run what's called a motor vehicle report. It's an MVR. There's also something called a CLU. That's CLU. That's a claims loss underwriting. That's a report. So they run the CLU. If they're a smart agent, they're just going to run the CLU automatically because it's free. They don't run the motor vehicle report, which is the tickets, and sometimes accidents fall in them, but the loss history should show up on the CLU report. That gives them an accurate idea of if you've had the glass, the theft, the vandalism, the towing, the accidents. That shows up in the CLU report. The MVR is what an insurance company has to pay for. So when they run those, they're usually paying $8 to $12 per person to run that report. It doesn't cost you anything. They don't even put it in the price as far as like the changing of what they're quoting you, because that's a risk they're willing to take. They would rather get a horrible report come back and deny you a policy than they would have you be insured at a guessed rate and have the policy go up, or have you leave them, or have a claim, or whatever the case is. So once you've said go ahead and move forward, they're running that clue and that MVR report, and that's where things may change. If that report comes back with a negative strike, the price might go up. Sometimes, very rarely, it's wrong, but sometimes there's something on that report that you can dispute. If it's a claim that wasn't yours, or someone filed a claim against you and you didn't know about it, and it shouldn't have been, and you can defend that. So the easiest way, if you are going to defend that, look up a company called LexisNexis, and you can go forward with that report filing, and they'll try to figure all that out. So that's the difference. You got the quote, which is kind of accurate. I've had that, I'd say 7 out of 10 times be fairly accurate, minus tickets and accidents. A lot of people, you'll notice, don't put claims and tickets and accidents on there because they assume that if it doesn't show up, that it doesn't matter. Be careful with that, because most companies have a 60-day underwriting period. If that report is reran for any reason, or comes back and changes within 60 days, you've committed to that policy, but the rate might go up because of that scenario where it shows up. Always have your agent run a clue in a motor vehicle report. 9 out of 10 times, last warning or be careful part is if you go to purchase policy online, make sure that they run that. They don't always tell you. Sometimes a company will let you purchase it. There are some companies out there that will allow you to buy the policy based on your information if it's incorrect within that 60-day underwriting period. So normally within the first 30 days, usually within the first 10 days, you've already paid the payment. They allowed you to buy the policy. You're insured. But that comes back with an at-fault accident or a speeding ticket or something that would normally affect the rate. They're going to send you a bill for the difference. They're also going to increase the rate that you're paying for future payments. That's one of the things you got to be a little bit leery on. Most companies are starting to fix that to where they just run them ahead of time, but they don't always work. Sometimes your license doesn't match your date of birth, or your name was misspelled on the quote, and that can throw the whole thing off. It's all based on your driver's license being able to run that motor vehicle report. In most cases, you'll notice that these systems are smart enough to know who you are. It's kind of weird, huh? You go to purchase a policy and it says, oh, who are these additional drivers? Those are people that might have lived in the house. All of a sudden, it knows their driver's license numbers. They're not going to show you online, but they know it in the background. If an agent that set you up a policy before had typed it incorrectly, then it sometimes can run that report wrong. Or if you've lived in a different state before that, that license from the old state sometimes carries into the new one. And it doesn't run the report because the claim that you had was in the new state, and they find it later. And then there's a little bit of headache that can happen from that. That's one of the reasons some of those tech pieces aren't the best route where you can go directly to an agent. The cool part with most of these is there's a lot of companies that will allow you to do the quote online. They'll allow you to call or receive a call from an agent. For example, in the link to the description below, I have a company that works with tons of different companies. You've got your Progressives, you've got your Nationwides, you've got your Allstate companies, you've got all of the major brands, your Safeco, which is owned by Liberty Mutual. You've got tons of those places that you can shop with one spot. When you select it, what I always recommend that you do is before you purchase the policy, it's fine to do if you trust it, and I would most likely trust it. Always make sure that that report is ran ahead of time. Once you've processed that and you say make payment and you make that payment, 9 out of 10 times you've got a policy. Some companies don't turn it into a policy until you've signed their documents. So you're going to get an email. You're going to get a form. You have to accept it. You're signing that, yes, this is the coverage I chose. This is the coverage I want. Yes, to the best of my knowledge, this is the medical I do or don't want. And this is, to the best of my knowledge, this is my car. This is registered to me. Everything that I said here is true. Sign it, accept, hit submit. That is the guaranteed way that you have an insurance policy. As long as your payment has processed, and the payment doesn't bounce and it clears, that policy is active. It typically starts at 12:01 a.m., so the day of you signing it. If you signed it today, it technically retroactives to the morning of that day. Some companies do the following day. So just be careful, look at that actual effective date. So it's not 12:01 a.m. the following day. Okay, that was a lot. Quote versus policy, there's an in-between, there's a couple warnings, there's a lot going on there. Hopefully I didn't overwhelm you guys with the data. There's a lot going on, hence why this channel exists. If you are interested in getting a quote online, I've got a video here that you may be wanting to check out where this is the process I would personally take. Otherwise, if you're looking more for knowledge on the actual coverages, I've got an Insurance 101 that might help you out as well. The thumbs up helps me the most. There's some little donate buttons down there that I turned on. If you want to donate, feel free. Otherwise, I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.